Hey everyone, welcome to Straight Ups Startups presented by founderslive.com. My name is Connor Kaysen, and like always, I'm joined by my friend Nick Hughes. Nick, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Connor. Doing well, man.
Awesome. Well, we're meeting today. It is August 9th, Tuesday. As always, we meet at Tuesday evenings. And yeah, today what we do, like always on the show, is we have around 5 to 10 topics that Nick and I curated ourselves. We've posted them on Founders Live so we can get some discussion going. And what we do here is we just kind of summarize everything that we've learned and usually go back and forth about some of our thoughts and opinions. So to jump in, for our first topic today, something that I threw in here based off the news that was going on specifically this week, and it has to deal with Delta. And as we all know, most of us have traveled and dealt with delays and sitting in airports and that frustration. And so Delta's down. Thousands of flights have been delayed or canceled. They've had to give millions of dollars of refunds away to all the different travelers. And my question to you, Nick, it just deals with technology. We kind of seem to technology is disrupting all these different industries. And so, do you think that tech has a place in consumer air travel? And how do you think that startups can kind of jump into this opportunity to help some of these big companies or disrupt some of these big companies to create a better product?
Yeah. I think tech has to be there. I mean, even just think about the what goes into every single day air travel. I mean, it's just insane, right? And so tech, of course, it is should be there and needs to be there. I think what's crazy though is reliable tech, right? And
Yes.
so in reading some of what was going on, I mean, you can imagine probably how legacy some of these systems are, how old they are, what languages they've been built on. And Delta was blaming it on a blackout or some sort of power outage. But the power companies basically said, no, it started within you guys. So yeah, I think the answer here is that there's ample opportunity for companies to go in and build new solutions, better, more dependable, those sort of things. But within doing research on this, air travel is at basically its height. Like there are more people traveling every day on airplanes than ever before. There's least amount of empty seats. So, people depend on this all day and every day. And so, yeah, I think that this clearly illustrates that there's a problem, and many different companies can come in and really just create a more efficient process.
Yeah, I just thought this was very interesting because from my experience and what I know about airline companies, I do think they're very similar to startups. Lots of money are put up in front, and a lot of times they don't make a lot of money, which we've seen kind of be a problem with startups as well, as people put millions, if not billions, of dollars into companies that don't generate any profit, don't generate any revenue. I know airlines operate the same way. They make millions and millions of dollars, but sometimes they don't make a profit, but they still exist and they still keep going. And I know that Virgin Air came in. JetBlue was a big one that really disrupted the market when they came around. Southwest Airlines probably is the most recent one that has really disrupted it, with them just trying to take over a region to start and being very successful with that. And so I'm just waiting to see, is there going to be a Tesla, a company of airlines, someone who can just do it more efficient, make the planes cheaper, make the flights a better customer experience, because that's really a big problem
Yeah,
as
It's
well.
it's funny that you mentioned that because I'm laughing in the way that there are how many billions of dollars are now being spent towards space travel, but there's still clearly problems in air travel just around our world. And so it's like you're asking like, is there going to be a Tesla for air travel? And I'm just like, I don't know. I hope that yeah. I mean, look, we got Boeing here, Airbus in the European Union, and um, but then you look at all the airlines, and there's still clearly just major problems. They're dealing with some very legacy type, technology as well as concepts in general. So I hope that there is a Tesla, but it's funny that you look at Bezos and others are paying they're putting their attention towards space. So I don't know.
Yeah, you would think those problems are just going to they're going to be tenfold when they're making these distances in space just so much more extreme. Uh,
Oh yeah.
despite the danger of going to space and how difficult that's going to be to take consumers there. Yeah, it's very interesting to see that maybe there's someone out there that we don't know about that's trying to work on that, because it is very expensive, $1 billion just to get the airplanes bought and running. But I just think that someone's got to try to disrupt the software system and just making all these things a little bit more modern.
Yep. All right, so moving on. Next topic, interestingly enough, basically talking about network effects. And so first of all, we're going to talk about what are they, and then actually, like, how can you build them? And a little background here. First of all, anyone that's watching or that is on Founders Live, they're going to find quite a few articles shared from Andreessen Horowitz. And recently there was a great podcast that came out about network effects, essentially on this topic, and the types of network effects and everything and how to achieve them. And so I think, I'll just throw it out to you, Connor, is, what do you know about network effects? I can clearly give my opinion, but what do you know about them? And, have you seen any examples of great network effect businesses or applications that you use?
Yeah, well, kind of having that concept, I think, is just a brilliant way to try to grow your startup, right? And it revolves around a lot of the word of mouth and kind of getting referrals, which we see in all different types of schemes and models to get around. The first one I actually thought about was Candy Crush, because Candy Crush, it's still around. Like, people still play it all the time, and it's one of those games that have lasted a lot longer than any other mobile game. I remember the Farmville and all these kind of big viral games went around. But what Candy Crush does really well is they've set up the time limits. And what they do is they say, in order to get more lives or decrease this time that you have to wait, you have to send a message on Facebook or get an invite or get someone new to sign up and bring someone else in, and then that gets you to play it. So from what I've seen with network effects, it's a lot about how can you kind of get someone else to come in, but also keep you as a contributor, so you guys kind of all raise the level of both boats. So Candy Crush, I think I hate it so much when I get the Facebook messages, but they've done that so well. The other ones, everyone always talks about it, but Uber and Lyft, what they've done to get people to sign up is they give the discount or the reward to both parties. So if I invite someone new onto the platform, which is like almost impossible with anyone in the tech industry to get someone new on these platforms, but that new person gets $20, and I also get $20 once they sign up, which keeps me as a user, keeps me inviting new people, and kind of gets everyone involved. And they've done a very good job on doing that on the other side with getting people to drive. So if you're a driver and you recommend or refer someone else to drive and they sign up, then you both get a referral bonus of usually hundreds of dollars. I think at one point they went up to like $1,000, and that just gets more drivers, more people talking about the platform, and they've done a really good job kind of getting the word out there about their services.
Wow, yeah. So for anyone that's not very familiar, network effects, basically the definition is the value of the network is increased with each new node on the network or user. So, like Facebook is a clear classic example. The first 2 people on Facebook, it really wasn't very valuable, right? But the 100th, the millionth, the 100 millionth, now you have a lot more connections, a lot more value created. And so, I thought that this was a great topic for any of the founders out there that are building anything that might involve some sort of network or any type of application that might be social in nature, and they're looking for growth. And so, you really just the examples that you shared in terms of incentivizing both parties, incentivizing sharing, and then building your product around the value that's created when another user is participating and taking activity on the application. A network effect takes place when their actions add value to you and your experience on the application. And what's interesting is, I think you mentioned Uber. Uber's one that the network effect has value in terms of the more riders on the system, the more drivers see value in it and they want to make money. But you taking a ride on Uber doesn't necessarily add value to me.
Yeah.
So I think but if you tweet something, I might read it and find value in that. So you really want to think about what your use case is, and how does one user add value to another, and then how do you extrapolate that out? And another thing to think about is virality versus network. Those two are different. They kind of have some relationships together, but an article can go viral on any, like on Twitter or any sort, like on the internet, but yet that's not a network effect. So you got to think about those two in conjunction, but they're not the same thing. But speaking of that, going viral on Facebook or any sort of social platform, Connor, what do you think about anti-clickbait and the whole movement that Facebook is actually making now to really try to rid or at least calm that down?
Yeah, so Facebook this last week kind of came out. Actually, they're doing a lot to really get some of that spamminess off of their network. They understand, and it's part of their openness and communication transparency that they want to have, specifically around their algorithm. And I think it's great for them because they're going to lose all their users if the content specifically on the newsfeed isn't tailored to exactly what they want and what their needs are. And I know I go through this a lot where I kind of get burnt out of Facebook because it's just not providing the content that I want. So they've updated it, and what they're really doing is now they've created a score, a clickbait score, for any piece of content, or should I say article, that you share that's trying to drive clicks, which all media companies are using Facebook now. It's the #1 distributor of how you get your content out there. And it's great for all the different publishers, but there's so much spam because all these companies make money based off how many people click through them. So you see, right, like, you won't believe what this guy did on, and so it forces you to click on it because you want to know what you can't believe, and then it gives you a list of 20 different things, and you have to load 20 different pages to see the list. And so I love it. I thought it was awesome because I'm very tired of seeing these spam headlines that you can just tell they're clickbait right from the get-go. So I'm hoping that it changed the mind of the publishers to start putting real news out there and actually make the headline worth reading. Because right now it's, we'll put a headline that'll get the click, but that's not how we consume information. Even if we just see the headline and we talk about it later, that should be just as much value to that brand.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like it's probably one of the most, the strongest things I despise on the internet and on our web today is how ridiculous advertising has influenced media, which has influenced the information that's put out, and then literally just to the clickbait titles of articles, and it's absolutely terrible. And I commend Facebook for releasing, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, just their new direction on what they're going to show in the news feed, and clearly this has influence on, I mean, they're taking it very seriously. They know that there's people like me that aren't going there as often. I just found myself in the last probably month or two, I don't go to Facebook as often just because too many ads. It's political season and I just don't want to see it. and there is also this type of stuff. Yeah, you won't believe, like, are you kidding me? Like, or guess what this person did? Or it's just like so ridiculous, right? So these are the things that I am so glad Facebook is cleaning up. I hope other media outlets follow this. I hope other social networks, maybe even, I don't know what Twitter would do, but I think that they should follow suit. And I think as we continue down this path, maybe all these media outlets will band together and clean up a little bit and influence the journalism and media outlets to simply use better. It might turn into like a, there's an international advertising organization that sets guidelines and requirements, and maybe this will turn into something that there's more guidelines and requirements around. But I think it's terrible, and it almost fascinates me of how bad it's actually gotten. and you got Facebook here actually saying, nope, we're not going to participate. So I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, it's great to see Facebook really taking that stand and being so pro-consumer lately, because the last couple of years they haven't been that way. They kind of learned that, hey, we're the content king, where everyone lives. We're kind of the center of all this internet activity, and so it's kind of all about that money. So it's nice to see them kind of doing things that are pro-consumer and anti-clickbait, which is great. And so on to the next topic. It's probably the biggest story of the week, that some people are surprised about, some people aren't surprised about, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. But e-commerce company Jet is set to sell their product to Walmart for $3 billion. I remember when Jet launched, I think it was like a year ago, huge advertising campaign. They're trying to compete all against Amazon. They had a big reveal and kind of, here's our launch day and everything. And so I think it's now only been about a year and they're selling for $3 billion. So Nick, what do you think? Have you used Jet? Was this all the plan all along? Walmart was the only buyer. What's your opinion?
Yeah, hey, it was. Well, first of all, it's like the talk this week is a $3 billion exit a failure, and the fact is that the CEO, Mark, I believe his name was, he came out very strongly, and I think they were founded maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but yeah, they launched maybe a year and a half ago, and he came out just arm swinging towards Amazon and basically said we're going to compete with them. And so a $3 billion exit to Walmart on the surface looks like a failure. But I'm not surprised. I really think at this point you really can't compete with Amazon. And knowing what I understand about the situation of the company, they were looking to raise. It was kind of like raise probably upwards of $1 billion or eventually have to sell. I mean, economics, when you get to this deep in, and again, they're not very old, but they've taken a ton of money already. You can't just raise another $50 or $100 million. Like they had to raise $500 to $1 billion, and they probably weren't going to find it. Like they probably were out raising money. Turns out they couldn't, and it was like, oh shoot, like what do we do? And we got to sell. And I'm assuming they had some deals or some partnerships going on with Walmart that it just ended up getting in acquisition talks. But look, not a failure by any means. But when he was saying that we were going to take on Amazon, he didn't achieve that goal.
Yes, I totally agree. They didn't get anywhere close to what Amazon's doing. And what I think Amazon did so well is they started off with a niche, right? They went after books to start, and they took over books, and then they moved out from there. They created the Kindle, so they kind of had this hardware component with all the different sales, and then they just branched out with all the different products. And Amazon took their time. Jet was kind of this big explosion. What Jet has done that was really smart was their distribution model. And when you go through the e-commerce portal, it finds the seller that is the cheapest. So it makes sure it does get you the cheapest price, which is a very unique piece of technology. And I'm interested to see if Walmart's going to be able to utilize that, because everything comes from them, but they probably are almost always one of the cheaper options. But yeah, they raised $800 million, right? And that's a crazy amount of money to take on someone like Amazon, and $3 billion I think was a little bit excessive. They're predicting that they're going to have $1 billion in revenue this year.
It shows how I don't know if it was the same article, but it shows how like the value that Walmart puts on getting at least some like strong foothold in e-commerce, and their e-commerce has actually been shrinking in the last couple of years. They're clearly a brick and mortar, they're a physical retailer for sure. And this is $3 billion worth of attempt to get back in the game and leverage that technology, build a niche in that direction. And maybe we're only going to know in the next 2, 3, 4 years if this was a good decision or not. But look, if I'm a founder of a 3-year-old startup, I wouldn't be too disappointed to sell for $3 billion.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
But hey, moving on. So Speaking of startups and sales, what makes a great startup salesman?
Yeah, so for me, I thought this was a great article, because it makes me feel a little bit better about what I've been doing. I've been doing sales for a local Seattle startup. Now I'm kind of becoming that experienced person for the last 3 years. But they really took a flyer on me, only having basic. I worked at Microsoft before. I worked in recruiting before. I didn't really have the sales experience that they were looking for, and I was doing a lot of door-to-door sales, selling to local businesses. And but the founder of the company really took the chance on me because of the qualities this article talks about. Right, I had the drive, the willingness. I was flexible. And some of that tenacity. That's a lot of times what you need in a startup salesperson is you need the person who's going to put in the long hours, who's going to be willing to work hard and get over that steep learning curve. And so this article talks about how startups a lot of times can't afford this veteran salesperson because usually they have, if they're great at sales and they've been in the job for 10 plus years, then they have a standard of living that is made for that kind of salesperson. Usually they're generating a high level of commissions. They're making really good money, and startups just can't afford that. So you gotta take a risk on getting someone young, tenacious, outgoing, who's going to go in and kind of work hard and go through that learning curve. So I was really happy to see this to say, hey, startups, like look at some of these younger people who don't have as much sales experience because you might find a golden egg inside your company who could really help lead you and kind of go through that growing process that your company is going through.
Yeah. You know, I kind of thought of you about when I read this article, just because I'm familiar with your work and your job as well, and you know, as a startup founder and a CEO, you know, this was an interesting article, and when we look for salesmen, it is absolutely right. Look, if you're looking for someone that has, you know, anyone that's putting their resume out there and that has, you know, 10, if not 15 years of experience, you know, that there's quite a bit of difference in expectation, salary requirements, all that stuff. They're looking to pull, you know, 150, 200, maybe $500,000. That's not out of the question on enterprise sales when they're doing it right, and that is not going to happen in a startup typically. So you know, when you're a founder and you're like, okay, we need to hire a sales team, who do you look for? And you absolutely look for like this hidden talent, right? And I felt like this article really pointed out, it basically had 7 or 8 points of characteristics, I guess you could call them, that, you know, one of them that popped out at me was essentially, you know, essentially no fear of rejection. And that's a big thing, right? Whether you're selling to small businesses or you're selling to medical, you know, staff, you're gonna take no's. And so if as a salesman in a startup, that's unheard of, you have to be able to take no's, and take the rejection is not personal, it's simply part of the process. And so people that might not have sales experience, but they're just good at taking rejection for whatever it's worth, that's a very good, very, very high quality to have. Secondly, I think that there was like entrepreneurial spirit. So they're totally, they just get like the startup world, the entrepreneurial environment, the like every day is unique and different, and it's not always planned. That's huge too. And then charisma, the ability to just walk in and pick up a conversation very quickly, retouch base with people, remember when you talked to them a month ago, those sort of things, man. I mean, there's a list of 8 or 10 things, but those popped out at me as those are absolutely requirements to hire someone on as a salesman in your early stage startup, but they might not have sales experience previously, kind of like you, right? So yeah, I think that those are what make a great salesman, and people are out there.
Yeah, and the one more point that the author made that I really liked was just around communication and kind of what communication skills you need to be a good salesperson. I think a lot of times salespeople are kind of cornered into this. So you got to be this extrovert, exciting person that's got all this charisma and personality. And yes, those things help. But a lot of times being a great salesperson is knowing how to listen, right? And asking the right questions, because if you can get the other person to talk more, that actually will get them to feel more open towards you and actually get a liking to you more, making good eye contact, asking the right questions. When you can get that person out of their shell, they'll automatically trust you so much more. And building that trust quickly is really one of the biggest things that you can do as a salesperson. So knowing how to listen, asking the right questions, and getting them to kind of divulge more information just gives you more ammo for when it does come to the time that you need to close a sale. You've got all the information that you need.
Absolutely. Great points. Great points.
So this week, we have this company here in Seattle, for those of you that aren't here. It's called Reach Now. It's a project by BMW, which is a competitor to all the ride sharing companies. So what it is, they've got BMWs and Minis all over our city. They compete with Zipcar, Car2Go, and they just have really nice cars that are fairly inexpensive. You pay by the minute, but they just reached a deal with a nearby parking lot at SeaTac Airport, which is kind of a big deal because the airport has been this like unique spot in our city, and I know many other cities, where the Ubers and the Lyfts aren't allowed to pick up people. They can drop people off, but they haven't been able to pick up until recently. And so Reach Now got this lot where now anyone can book a car, BMW specifically, drive the car to the airport, and when they get home, they also have another BMW there to pick them up. And so the big thing that they're saying is that to go from downtown to the airport is going to be about $17. And I've ridden Ubers and Lyfts. It's anywhere from $30 to $50. And so, Nick, I just want to know, have you had any experience with Reach Now? And if so, or if not, how do you usually get to the airport?
Man, that's a great question. First of all, I have not used Reach Now at this point. When they launched, I was kind of like, okay, look, we actually have quite a few options here in Seattle for transportation. I mean, you have Car2Go, which is basically this idea, but Reach Now, they've actually made an impression on me. They're everywhere, so I see them all over the place. Secondly, they're now, you're actually getting into a BMW. It could be a Mini, it could be a 3 Series. What's great is that's way better than the tin cans that Car2Gos are, so that's better. But they're clearly backed by a more well-financed and, quite frankly, more intelligent and experienced company, BMW, which basically means that they're making better plays. And I felt like this is an incredibly, very intelligent move, incredibly smart. And, I haven't taken them to the airport, but the way I usually go, actually, I've taken you take Uber and it's $30, $35, and that's great. That's fine if I really need to get there fast. But I've noticed that if I'm not really pressured for time, dude, I take the light rail, and you're talking about $2 or $3 roughly from downtown to the airport, and it's about 30, 40 minutes, but it's perfect. And so if you're time pressed and you really just need to get there and ironically though, if there's traffic, you might not get there as quick. But you just making your decisions on the light rail is nice because it's very dependable and it's cheap. But then an Uber is pretty much on demand. So, but the price point versus an Uber that you're driving your own car, that makes a lot of sense. How about you?
Yeah, so I really like the price point. $17 is reasonable, but I'm on your boat too. I say screw all those things and take the light rail, right? Just plan ahead, take the light rail. It takes 40 minutes. If you take any of these ride-sharing services, you don't get to park at the airport. You have to park in an outside lot, wait for the shuttle, then take the shuttle in. It ends up being like a very similar amount of time. You don't save a lot, except for a couple bucks. Compared to an Uber or Lyft. And so, yeah, I'm in the same boat. If you guys are in Seattle, take the light rail. It's 100% better. Unless you get a friend to drive you, that's probably always the best option because that's convenient. But yeah, I just thought it was cool because they very quickly made a move on the airport. It took Lyft and Uber and Zipcar and all these companies a really long time to get in and kind of set a platform. And so for Reach Now to make that move that quickly, I mean, they've only been out for a couple months now. And so to see them doing that, it's been very impressive. And yeah, I think they are starting to squash Car2Go, which originally I really liked Car2Go, despite all of their app problems. But Reach Now, because they provide really nice cars, that is such a huge step up when you're going to pay the same price from taking a smart car is what all the car to goes are. So yeah, I thought it was very, very interesting move by them, and just how quickly they did it was very impressive.
Absolutely, absolutely. But so we're going to move on, and we're going to move on to a topic that you know pretty well. You actually wrote a great article on Founders Live. So anyone that wants to check it out, founderslive.com. You want to, it's really about, you titled it essentially a millennial's perspective on social media and marketing. And, I guess I'll throw it to you. What social platforms do you use? How do you use them? Are they the same? Is there different? And really just like, how do you use them? What is the purpose of all that?
Yeah, so I wrote the article because I was kind of reflecting on how long I've been using social media. And I think I first got on MySpace about 10 years ago, which is kind of mind-blowing at this point to think like, wow, this stuff has been around for a decent amount of time now, and all these ideas and thoughts and strategies are all out there. And so for Founders Live, I wanted to put it up there because I know there's so many founders out there are kind of about a decade older than I am. And so I just wanted to put it out there about how do I use social media and where does it fit in my life and how do I use the different platforms, which is probably way different than teenagers coming up now. But all the platforms are very similar, and whether it's personal use or business use, they really all revolve around a photo, which I find really interesting. Is a photo is uber important. Probably the most important piece of content that you can put on any social media because you just get so much more engagement from all the people that want to see it. And usually we just consume faster when there's a photo. But something that I've developed is how do I use the different platforms? For me, I use Facebook to keep in contact with my friends and my family and share those photos, and specifically photos of people's faces, right? Because I think the big thing that's always stuck with me on Facebook is being able to tag other people. Hey, here's the people that I hung out with this weekend, and this is what we did, and here's all the photos of them, so they can take it and they can have it for their own personal records. And then Instagram is for all the photos of everything else. So if you were to look at my Instagram profile, not a lot. I mean, maybe there's one picture of my face on there, but it's pictures of sunsets and environments and football games and soccer games and all these kind of other photos that don't revolve around people. And then Twitter is just kind of for me to puke my thoughts all over the place. I'm not too worried about getting feedback. Where Facebook is a place I'll go and I'll say, hey, people, I need you to comment on here. Give me ideas or let me know what you think. Twitter is just kind of like, I'm just going to put it out on the internet because I need to get it out there for some reason. But Twitter is also a great place to distribute all your content. If you're creating content that you need people to see, you got to have a Twitter just to be publishing it out there because that is such a centralized place for all media to live. And now Snapchat is kind of the new big one, and it'll be interesting. Kind of the business perspective hasn't really been all fleshed out and decided except for these timelines and these stories, but small businesses haven't taken full advantage of that yet. But I use Snapchat way more than I use my messaging or my phone app now. My communication, I have 5 siblings. With all those siblings is 10 times more than it ever has been because it's so easy. I'm not worried about people liking it. It can be a blurry picture. It can be me mumbling. I'm not worried about what other people are going to think. It's just like, hey, friends and family, like, here's where I'm at. This is what we're doing. Or I had my brother in town this weekend, and it was just really easy to share quick little videos of where we were when we were at Seafair weekend with my family. And so it's been interesting to see where all those platforms are coming, and that's specifically how I use them. And I just want to put it out there for different founders to see, hey, this is how I use it. What you want to think about that when you're choosing what networks really to put all your time into.
Yeah, man, that's amazing, right? Like sometimes we actually don't even get some of that deep dive of here's how I use everything. We don't hear about that very much. And I guess I'll throw another question to you: is where does marketing fall into those platforms, right? And you don't need to take too much time in all of them, but when we talk about, look, at some point we're probably all on here building brands. How do those brands fit into this world that you just described? These are the places that I live my life. Some of them are personal, some of them are less. So how does marketing fit into that, the marketing that you would appreciate?
Yeah, so first it comes down to when you're choosing your social networks, right, you really need to find where your target audience is. And if you're targeting a millennial, you can't just say millennial anymore. The millennials were the most defined generation that's ever been because of the internet. Facebook alone has so much information about the 18 to 30-year-olds and where they live and what they like and what they do that no generation's really been defined like that. So you really have to tailor it down more. But when you're on social media, there's two things. One, it's about building your brand, not selling. That's really important. Is we've been sold and seen advertisements for our entire lives, and we are getting to the point where we can kind of see through the bullshit of you're just trying to sell us. So it's really important to use these platforms as a brand builder. Show us who your employees are, what they're doing. Show us what you're working on. Ask for feedback, kind of more try to build a personality with your company and actually have a voice than worried about getting us to download your app or, try this offer or whatever it is. And the second part is using social media as your customer service tool. This is where people are going to be talking about you, looking for feedback, messaging you. Facebook Messenger even has a piece of information on your profile that says how quickly you respond to questions. So use that as an opportunity to engage your audience, to talk with them, to ask them questions. If they reach out to you, that is your opportunity to learn about that customer. And after you kind of have a little bit of dialogue, feel free to go, hey, and by the way, don't forget that we did have a sale, whether it's in our store, online, whatever it is. But use that chance as a customer service tactic to really get to know that person more and kind of build that relationship between the two.
That's amazing, man. And I think in small ways we all use or think about social media that way, but that was golden. That was golden for some of us that are looking to build brands online and digitally. This is how we connect. We should be connecting with the younger demographic. Notice I didn't say millennials there.
Well, yeah, and I think it's interesting how it got lost so quickly because it's exactly the same as how we build relationships and get customers in real life, right? If you own a clothing store down here in Queen Anne or wherever in the city, right? When people come in, you talk with them, you ask them questions, you ask what they're looking for, and you build that quick relationship, and then you go into the products for when they need the help. But it's really about kind of getting that trust early on, and you want to use those same tactics on social media. It's just online. It's just not. It's exact same. It's just not in person. Great
points. And hey, okay, we are at our last one here. This is a question that was recently posted on Founders Live. What is your favorite go-to daily resource, such as a blog or a website, that you just suck up the information and you feel like if you hadn't gone to that website that day, it's not a complete day?
Yeah, so before, and I know someone mentioned this on the platform, I used to check Facebook every morning before I even got out of bed. The new platform that I really like going to is Medium, because it's user-generated content, and usually there's just really good insights. It's kind of been my newspaper per se, and I really like going to Medium to kind of get the day started and see what's going on and what people are talking about, and it just gives different types of topics and like what's the trending news right now. But as far as websites, blogs, podcasts, and everything that I visit every day. Tim Ferriss, I talk about him all the time. He's by far my favorite person in tech or any industry. He wrote The 4-Hour Workweek. His website's the4hourworkweek.com. He's the only one that when it comes to getting an email or having his podcast, every single day and week, when I see those things come up on my feed, like I'm reading it, I'm dedicating time to it just because I really value what he has to say. It doesn't matter if he's talking with someone in tech or someone who's a chess prodigy. He's someone that I really value and I want to listen to. Some other ones, Seth Godin, SethGodin.com is just incredible information about marketing. He's the other one that I really fancy whatever he has to say.
Nice. Yeah, so the ones that came to mind for me, I'm as a tech, more focused founder, and definitely interested in VC or just an investor's point of view. The two that popped out to me was AVC, which is Fred Wilson. He is an investor at Union Square Ventures in New York, and he has been blogging for probably about 10 years now. He has a very, very well followed blog, hundreds of thousands of followers, I would assume. And what's pretty cool is, I mean, he's posting every day. I mean, that's the thing, man. If you're going to be a well-known blogger, you have to develop the cadence of every single day. And his posts are 250, 500 words, sometimes longer, but very, very few or very long. And he's just writing very intelligently on tech, on investment, on the ecosystem around this startup world and tech in general. And so I think that it's a really, it's avc.com, very valuable if you are a founder and are looking for that information. Another one is A16Z, which is Andreessen Horowitz. They not only have blog posts, but more importantly, I love their podcasts. I listen to them all the time. We've already quoted them once, but their podcasts are just incredible. And if we're going to get onto the subject of podcasts, I would say that Reboot.io is a very, very high quality podcast. It's very oriented around the psychology of being a founder, leadership, and dealing with struggles that we all deal with. So that's a great one. And yeah, I would say that those are the three that, I'm constantly going to. And, I love the ones that you suggested as well. So with that, it's a great segue into this Straight Up Startups is definitely is something that we do every week. It's brought to you by Founders Live. Founders Live is a social platform for entrepreneurs and founders. And if you're watching this on Founders Live, thank you for being a member. But if not, you got to check it out, founderslive.com. There's a ton of daily resources there that range from, funding to co-founders to, how to grow a startup to finance to legal. And every day it's going to be blog posts, videos, chat with other members, maybe a live streaming conversation like this. So got to check it out.
Excellent. Well, that's all we have for today. Nick, thank you very much. Thank you, listeners, and we'll see you next week.
See you later.